Great. So welcome everybody to another episode of Pedagogy Talks with the wonderful Irina Gorin and myself, Lanzo Luconi. I'm the founder and director of the Costa Rica Piano Festival, for those of you who don't know me. And this year we started this series of different talks and different art forms within the music that we would like to share with all of you. And today we are talking about preparation for performances and competitions. This is a very, very wide topic, and I'm sure all of us have our own experiences and opinions and lessons, some of them very hard lessons that we've learned, but nevertheless very useful. So towards the end, we'll have a space for you to ask questions, or you can share your experience. During our conversation, please keep your mics muted, and whenever it's time to ask the questions, I will ask you to unmute and you can participate. So I think without further ado, we can get started. So Irina, first of all, great having you again. Thanks for joining us. And so competitions and performances. So how do you approach either one?
I personally feel that public performances in whatever form, is it just a class recital or a family get or a school talent show or big international competition, they could become invaluable life skill learning experience for our children. And I really value each of them. But of course, not all kids are cut out for jumping into international competition. So that's why teacher has to be very, very careful in selecting a certain event, certain public performance for each child and this child's abilities and maturity level. Because if the student has negative experience on stage, especially first time, it will affect the student's growth, musical growth, and experiences with public performances for a long time. That's why it's very big responsibility for a teacher. And one of the very important things is educating parents and students about the whole thing. They have to know what to expect, especially if it's a first time experience.
So how impactful is a positive experience with the right preparation? Like how do you plan for this experience to be as positive as possible, because we know the impact that it can have in the rest of the process?
For me and my students' families, we always have in mind three stages of the whole concept of recital or competition. The first stage, the biggest one, is before the public performance. The second stage is during the performance. And the third stage is after the performance. And we discuss in advance each of those stages and every single element of each of those. For example, for before the competition stage, one of the biggest thing for us teachers is to select the proper repertoire for the student. In public performances, we want kids to show their best qualities, their strengths, and never reveal their weaknesses. Of course, every child is different. Some has very good natural quick fingers facility. Some are more musical, but naturally not as technically equipped. So we want to choose pieces that will help the students to feel comfortable in their comfort zone, but at the same time show very good presence. So I usually give, if we consider taking part in the competition, I usually start preparing to that probably a year in advance. Because if I see one of the pieces is not going as well as I would expect, there is always time to change. Otherwise, if it's too late, the child will suffer on stage.
Yes,
Another
you were mentioning the importance of choosing the correct repertoire, right? And I think also part of that is also the importance of noticing how connected the student is to the piece that they're currently working on. Because sometimes it's a piece that maybe they don't enjoy too much, and maybe it's an important piece that they do have to go through, right, in their learning process. But maybe that's not the piece to perform. I think maybe the first experience should be with a piece that they really, really love, they really feel connected with. So there's bigger chance that they won't feel as nervous, or the performance will be more musical and they'll have a better experience. But yeah, I think that's a key element here. And then giving the student enough time where and we talked about it last week about motivation, framing this as this is going to be great. You are going to be the best that you can possibly be in this moment because we're preparing all of this time. We're working on it together. We're encouraging the students. So we're telling basically the student, you're going to be great, and this is where you get to show it. Right?
Yes. And another thing, as the president of Carmel Clavier International Competition and as a teacher who's been preparing students for decades for all kind of competitions and observing them, I've learned that some teachers are tending to give the students pieces that are a little, not a little, but way above the student's abilities. And instead of helping the student to get to the good result, that student again suffers and doesn't really learn anything. And some parents are also, they are thinking that the longer and the harder the piece is, the more chances for student are to win. I remember I had a little student, 7-year-old, who played in a local competition and took second place. And the very next lesson, her dad came to the lesson and said, I know why my daughter took second place, because the student who took first place, his pieces were 6 pages long.
Oh God.
But my daughter's piece was only 2 pages long. So unfortunately, we also need to educate parents and students. I also had students who, at the age of 9 or 10, would say, I want to play Fantasy Impromptu by Chopin for the competition because if I play easier piece, I will not win. So there is a lot of education that should go on for a while. And first of all, students and parents have to trust the teachers, educated and informative opinion. And they have to be prepared that it's not guaranteed to win if you're playing very hard piece. You have to master the piece, and even if it's easier than some other pieces, it doesn't mean you're not gonna win.
Yeah, that's part of our responsibility as teachers, right? Also, like educating the parents on this. And you sometimes, yes, they're just completely unreasonable, but other times they just speaking out of their own experience, but they don't know better, right? So that's where we have to come in and explain to them, like it's really not so much what you play, it's how you play it, and that's what's going to determine the results in a competition. And on top of that, and this is something that I tell my students all the time, you have absolutely no control over the results. You can play your absolute best or your absolute worst that day. You have no control over what the judges are going to do, what they're going to pick, the comments they're going to write, the criteria they're going to use to give out the results. So just play your best, and that's it. The rest is going to be up to the judges.
And also it depends on how good the kids who play before and after that student.
Yeah, but that's also, you don't know that. You don't know the kids that maybe you do some, you do know some, but it's impossible to know all of them. And there's always going to be kids that are better, and there's always going to be kids that are not so good. But that's part of the world of competitions. So maybe let's take a moment here to talk about the competitions. What they, you know, this world of competitions is, it can be a very divisive topic amongst many teachers, because for some people, they think that competition should not exist because music should not be evaluated in that way, and then other people love it, also for the wrong reasons. A lot of people love it for like their own like ego and stuff like that. So what's your general take on music competitions?
As I mentioned, particularly for my students, it was always a big motivation. I've noticed after each competition how much they grew musically, how much more experience they gained, how much deeper we were able to dig into the piece and discuss every single detail. While if we prepare just for the recital or for regular lessons, we would never get to that depth. We would never talk about these things as for the competition. We would never master it to that level. So I think it's a great learning experience. But of course, as a teacher, I always looking for different opportunities for as many choice. I want to have as many choices as possible, because not all students are cut out for the same competition. Some kids would prefer closed competitions where they are only in the room with the judge and no public. The other kids love big audiences and applauses and all this atmosphere. Um, but my main goal to offer different opportunities for students so they can experience different audiences, different venues, different instruments, different stages. And it's all very good learning opportunities to be able to focus and do their best and transform in no matter what atmosphere they are.
I love what you said there. It's an opportunity to do your best. I think that's I'm going to steal that quote. This is an opportunity to do your best, and in front of like judges and people, whatever the setting is. And I guess it's also an opportunity for students to challenge themselves when they reach a certain level of maturity. Maybe it's time to grow out of that comfort zone of maybe just closed doors, or maybe just recitals, and maybe just gradually take those steps to grow.
And I definitely agree when we talk about artists, we shouldn't compete them because everyone will bring their own individual qualities into the same pieces, into the same performances. And it's extremely hard and super subjective. But when we talk about kids, for them, if we create the right attitude and the right atmosphere, this is going to be a great experience that will help them to grow their life skills, and they get to meet kids all different parts of the world who are also motivated and loving music. I think it's just very important for their overall musical growth and growth as human beings.
Right, 100% agree. The Music itself cannot be graded so rigidly. It cannot be evaluated so rigidly, especially when so many different people. And this is true for even artists that are at the top of the industry right now. Some of them haven't really won any like big competitions or anything like that, you know. And I think understanding that competitions have a place, a time and place, they're not everything, right? And they shouldn't be viewed as like the only way to succeed or the only way to get better. It's just, like you said, it's just an option, and it's a good one. But if you go in with the right mindset, with the right attitude, it can be very positive. I agree. All right, so I think it's time to let our audience here participate if they have any questions or any comments, any experiences that they want to share. We'd like to hear them. And while they're getting ready, you can unmute your mic if you want. If you're joining us here on Zoom, you can unmute your mic and ask your questions. But in the meantime, I have a couple of questions here that came in through our Instagram page. So the first question, Irina, is what age should students start performing?
It's a really good question. And from my own experience, I can tell the sooner, the earlier students start experiencing public performances, the better stamina and stage presence they develop and feel comfortable on stage. The later we wait until student matures enough, the harder it will be for them to start. So usually, even after first few weeks of the lessons, piano lessons, when the child can play a simple tune, I give them recital public performance opportunities. With youngest kids, I always on stage with them playing little duets. But in young kids' life, it's such an event when they dress up and go on stage and take a bow and hear the applauses. It gives them so much of self-esteem and feeling of accomplishment. And
They get to see other kids play too. I think that's incredibly important.
absolutely. So I don't wait long. As soon as they can play few notes on the piano, they can participate in little. Of course, I don't send them to national competitions, but definitely starting with little recital with smaller audiences. And usually, a lot of my students, by the end of the first year of studies, a lot of them already take part in some competitions.
All right. Anyone wants to ask questions or share an experience? We'll get to the second question in the meantime. How do you feel about online competitions?
I have mixed feelings about that. um, of course, during the pandemic, we have no other choice. Uh, and we do not want to stop our students to experience these feelings of being on stage and bringing joy to other people. It's another important mission of the competition for kids to feel that they are sharing their love for music and give it to the audiences. So I appreciate the opportunity that there are different ways to do it right now, just like with piano lessons online. We don't love them, but we don't want to stop them and not do anything for, I don't know. I'm so sorry. Somebody decided to call me.
Don't worry.
Um, yes, but at the same time, I would like to warn the teachers you need to be really selective and you need to study about position because some of them are not very high quality and some students play the same program for many different competitions. And if student happens to be a good one, these kids will win all these competitions and collect all the trophies, and the other kids who worked really, really hard, they wouldn't be able to do that and feel comfortable. So I would really study what kind of auditions these competitions use, what platform. So if they accept students who already participate with exactly the same program in other competitions, study their requirements. So do your homework before offering the student to join the competition. I mean, I do the same with live competitions too. There are a lot of live competitions I wouldn't send my students to for same reasons, but it's especially important right now with online options. They are convenient. You don't have to drive anywhere or fly, spend thousands of dollars on renting a hotel and transportation.
Right.
But at the same time, you don't want it to make like a routine, like a regular thing. It has to be event, no matter if it's online or live, and students have to feel it's special. And if they prepared 2 pieces for the whole year and won 15 or 20 competitions with the same 2 pieces, it's not going to teach them much.
Right. I agree. I agree. And, you know, the biggest issue, at least that I have with online competitions, is they're not necessarily fair in the sense that when you are submitting a video, and with the technology nowadays, you can edit a lot of things. You can erase all your own wrong notes. You can have these like amazing production of video. You can make it look like very, very professional. And then on top of that, the editing, I think it's it's impossible for me to actually take it seriously when they have that option. It's like, yeah, I'm just going to submit whatever video. It doesn't matter if you said in the rules, the technology nowadays, it's impossible to know whether it's edited or not. So that's why, not for me, nothing beats the event, like you were talking about, the live feeling of competitions. Now I know that there are some platforms that are bringing a little bit more fairness to the game. And for example, this year in the Costa Rica Piano Festival, we're utilizing a new platform that just came out that allows or it puts everyone in the same playing field, right? It's like everyone's playing the same. Why? Because this app, in this app, you're not allowed to edit or anything. Once you hit the record button, it's a performance, and then you can. That's it, right? So at least it brings a little bit more of the authenticity to the performance. And I feel okay. It's not ideal. It's not in person, but at least everyone is the same. Yeah.
Right.
So, and I could talk about this for a long time, but I know we're running out of time. And there's, I think, one more question here on the chat. Someone asked, do all your students participate in competitions or just some students? And how do you select who is ready?
I would say in my studio, practically every student participates in the competitions. But again, I'm being very selective and send them to the and have a lot of options of those competitions so they can feel that they are competing and they are participating, but they don't feel like they are not as good as other kids. So they have chance even to win. And I start what was the other part of the question? When I start
So how to select the ones who are ready?
how to select the students.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting question. Usually, we have to know about competition at least several months ahead, and I tell students and parents about this opportunity, and they have to show me that they are willing to work hard to prepare. The pieces have to be memorized at least a few months in advance, and they have to have chance to perform the competition pieces publicly at least few times before they go on stage. So if student is lacking discipline and pieces are not memorized, we are not gonna participate, because again it's gonna be a very negative experience for a student, and we don't want that to happen. So we talk about it and we make decision together. Basically, I don't make it as my. I ask them, do you want it to be a very negative experience where you will not feel comfortable? They usually choose not to, but next time they start working earlier.
Yeah,
Harder.
that's where the teachers also have to be very well acquainted to the different competitions that there are, whether it's in their own community or maybe bigger, statewide, nationwide, or international. And of course, you can start small. Sometimes the just local music teachers association will have some events that where they can start sort of trying it out, but don't go from like no experience to international competition, within a year or something like that. At least I wouldn't recommend it. It would have to be an extremely rare case of an extraordinary talent. But even then, it's important that they go through these steps, right? And then they will feel more accomplished.
Yeah.
Okay, I have here a last question. Okay, this is a long one. What do you do with students who tend to have anxiety and always perform at a discount when they're nervous, and how to teach the parents not to instill more anxiety to their children by being hypercritical of them? This is a great question, by the way.
It's a great question, but it probably will be impossible to observe within a short time. There are many steps to reduce anxiety, um, and working with parents, establishing a routine of practicing before the competition. Some parents don't even know that child must practice slowly because before the competition, because if they play it at performance tempo for a week, they learn their own mistakes and they create that anxiety, because the closer to the competition, the more mistakes they start making. This is one thing. Another, how to talk to your child, how to encourage them, how to be supportive. So parents can help teacher a lot. Other ways to reduce the anxiety and stage fright is to do dress rehearsals in the studio and other public performances. We gain experience from each public performance. So if student performs the same pieces several times in public, going on stage for the big competition will not be as frightening as first time or even second time. And during dress rehearsal, we have at least two before each public event, public performance. They wear their recital outfits so we can learn if there is any malfunction of the clothing happening, or the shoes are too tight, and everything will distract a student on stage. Um, so I have a rule: no brand new or never worn clothes at the competition. They have to play several times. So things like that. Again, it's a very wide question. I have the
Yes.
whole list that I give parents of my students way before the competition, and we talk about it very often. We video record students' performances several times, watch it together, and when they see themselves from a side and they feel, okay, I made a mistake and nothing happened, so maybe I shouldn't be as worried at the time of the competition, it all gives them a confidence and feel of being comfortable, so they can relax on stage and be able to be artistic, to transform into the character of the piece.
Yeah, absolutely. And the part where I think it's the parent role here is critical is the environment that they provide at home, because obviously they spend most of the time with a child. They have to be very, very encouraging, because sometimes even if the teacher has a positive impact, when they go back home and they have like constant like critique or maybe not so healthy mindset, that can bring them down quite a bit. So I guess a tip for parents, at least that I give very often, is never comment on the practice, when they're playing, when they're practice. Don't comment on it. Don't tell them if it's good or bad. Just ask them questions. Just ask them, how do you feel about it? How do you feel like you did enough today? Just out of curiosity, like have them reflect on their own, so they can build themselves up and they can take more accountability for themselves and not have to wait for anyone's approval in the end. Obviously they're seeking some sort of validation when they're very young, but you have to build them up. You have to build their self-esteem, like you mentioned.
And sometimes I realized people don't even understand about importance of making a schedule for the day of the performance. I've had students before who would come to the recital after a gymnastic lesson in the morning, and then afternoon soccer game on the hot summer day, and they would come ready, and now they need to perform a lyrical piece. So
Yeah.
parents, number one thing.
Yes, that definitely. Okay, so we are going to be closing this topic for today. Keep in mind that next week is going to be our last episode of the series. So I hope you can join us. Also, if you want to know more, jump into these and more other topics like technique and how to practice better, motivation, all of this, please consider signing up for the Pedagogy Program during the festival, which is July 13 to 18. And Irina will be leading this webinar where you'll be able to ask questions and just dive into this with a full program. And of course, if you want to know more about our other programs, you can visit our website, CostaRicaPianoFestival.com. Please follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you have any questions, feel free to send us a message. You can also check out Irina's website, is irinagorin.com. There, yeah, that's it. And she's also on YouTube. We're also on YouTube. If you want to see these talks, also they're going to be in our YouTube channels. If you want to see the performances of some of our students, or in the festival students and the festival events, you can see those on YouTube as well. And all right, so thanks everybody for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. Thank you so much, Irina, and have an awesome week. Pura vida.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.